Let's follow chapter 3. Here, that exercise, I want to get the total number of objects by using the two ways, the addition and the multiplication. Here, how to use the repeated addition way. Here, I used to skip counting before by saying 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, that was the skip counting way. Here, the repeated addition. I will say 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. Okay, that is the repeated addition way. How I change the repeated addition way into the multiplication sentence. Here I have 5, take only one 5 and change the plus into times, and I have how many 5 here? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 5 equals 20. So the total number of objects here are 20. By skip counting, I say 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, here I have rows, and if I have some rows and I have some columns, but over there I don't have rows or columns. I have groups. So I have to circle each group. That is group number 1, that is group 2, that is group 3, that is group 4, and the last one is group 5. Okay, the skip counting way I was saying 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. But here I don't want the skip counting way. I want the addition or the repeated addition. Say what to do. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. How to change the repeated addition way into multiplication. Here I will take only 1, 2 and change the plus into times. And how many 2 I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 times 5 equals 10. Okay? So, over there. If you notice here, when I multiply the number of rows, I have how many rows here? I have row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 rows. And how many columns? Column 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. I multiply the number of rows, which is 5, by the number of columns, which is 4. So without making the skip counting way, without making the repeated addition way, I can multiply directly the number of rows, which is 5, by the number of columns, which is 4. Okay, if I am talking about rows and columns in an array. So let's apply that rule on that example. Here, the question wants you to build an array. Let's build the array first. I have 4 rows, so let's write row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, of 2 to what? 2 columns. Column 1, column 2. Let's fill the array. Okay, so without making the skip counting way, without making the repeated addition way, I multiply the number of rows, which is 4, by the number of columns, which is 2. So my new rule to get the total number of objects is to multiply the number of rows by the number of columns. Okay, 4 times 2 equals 8, so that means I have 8 circles here. The same here. How many rows? 5 rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. And how many columns? 4 columns. Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. Let's fill the array. Okay, I will multiply the number of rows, which is 5, by the number of columns, which is 4. I add another column. Column 1, 2, 3, 4. I cancel that column. I have only 4 columns. Okay, so 5 rows, row 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 and 4 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, I'm going to cross that column. So I'll multiply the number of rows, which is 5, by the number of columns, which is 4. So without making the skip counting way, without making the repeated addition, I'll multiply the number of rows, which is 5, by the number of columns, which is 4. 5 times 4 equals 20. The same here. How many rows? Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4 of 4 columns. Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. Let's fill the array. Without the skip counting way, without the repeated addition way, I'll multiply the number of rows by the number of columns. 4 times 4 equals 16. And the same here and there. Okay, let's move along to how to multiply in order or multiply in any order. Okay, here I have how many rows? Row 1, row 2, I have 2 rows, and how many columns? 3 columns. So if I multiply 2 by 3, the number of rows by the number of columns, or I make the repeated addition way, 3 plus 3. Okay, is it going to be the same if I multiply 3 by 2? Because here I have row 1, row 2, row 3, and column 1, column 2. So I'll multiply the number of rows by the number of columns. 3 by 2. Are they the same if I said 2 times 3 and 2 times 3 and 3 times 2? Yes, I'll get the same answer here. So it's okay to say 6 times 2 and 2 times 6. They are the same. 2 times 2 equals 12 and 6 times 2 equals 12. Both are equal. So here, let's see. How many rows? Row 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 rows. And how many columns? Column 1, column 2, column 3. So if I multiply the number of rows, which is 4, by the number of columns, which is 3, I will get 12. I have 4 rows of 3 columns. After multiplying the number of rows by the number of columns, I'll get 12. If I replace the number of columns by the number of rows, if I make the number of columns to be the number of rows and the number of rows to be the number of columns. Here I have 4 rows, so I'll make 4 to be the number of columns. Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. And the number of column, which is 3, I'll make it to be the number of rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3. So how many rows here? I have 3 rows of 4. After multiplying the number of rows by the number of columns, I'll get the same result. So the order in multiplication is not important. If I say 4 times 3 is the same when I say 3 times 4. So here 3 times 4 equals 4 times 3 because both of them equals 12. Okay, the same here. How many rows? Row 1, row 2, how many columns? Column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 2 rows of 5 columns. When I multiply the number of rows by the number of columns, it's gonna be 10. Here, if I replace the number of rows with the number of columns, here I have 2 rows, so I'll make that 2 rows to be the number of columns. Column 1, column 2, and here I have 5 columns. I'll make it the number of rows. 5 rows. So let's see if I have the same answer or not. I have 5 rows and 2 columns. If I multiplied 5 by 2, I will get 10. That's the same result. So 2 times 5 equals 5 times 2. So the order is not important while I am multiplying. The same over there. Row 1, row 2, row 3, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. I have 3 rows and 5 columns. If I multiply the number of rows by the number of columns, I'll get the total number of objects, which is 15. If I replace the number of rows with the number of columns, I have 3 rows, I'll make it the number of columns. Column 1, column 2, column 3. And I'll make the number of columns to be the number of rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. If I multiply the number of rows, which is 5, by the number of columns, which is 3, 5 times 3 equals 50. So when I say 3 times 5 equals, when I say it is the same when I say 5 times 3. So 3 times 5 equals 5 times 3. Here, let's exchange the number of rows, or let's replace the number of rows with the number of columns. Here I have row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, and column 1, column 2, column 3. Okay, so when I multiply 6 by 3, is it gonna be if I multiply 3 by 6 or not? Let's see. I have 6 rows. I'll make the number of rows to be the number of columns. Column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, column 6, and the number of columns, I'm going to make it the number of rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3. Let's fill the array. Okay, so I'll multiply 3 by 6, the number of rows by the number of columns. When I multiply 6 by 3, I will get 18. When I multiply 3 by 6, I will get 18. So they are the same. Okay. This is row 1, and this is column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, column 6. If I replace the number of columns by the number of rows, here I have only one row, so I'll make only one column. Here I have 6 columns, so I'll make 6 rows. Row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6. Let's fill the array. So when I multiply the number of rows, which is 1, by the number of columns, which is 6, I have 6. Or when I multiply the number of rows, which is 6, by the number of columns, which is 1, I will get the same result. So 6 times 1 equals 1 times 6. The last page here. So we said before, if I multiply the number of rows by the number of columns, I can get the total number of objects. Let's apply this on groups. Here I have how many groups? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. And each group contains how many objects? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if I multiply the number of groups by the number of objects in each group. What shall I get? 5 times 4 equals 20. If I replace the number of groups by the number of objects in each group, what shall I get? Here I have how many groups? 1, 2, 3, 4, which was the number of objects in each group before. Of how many objects in each group? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which was the number of groups before. So I replace the number of groups with the number of objects in each group. Shall I get the same result? Yes, when I multiply 5 by 4 is the same when I say 4 times 5. So 5 times 4 equals 4 times 5. So when I multiply the number of groups by the number of objects in each group equals the total number of objects. Like I multiplied before the number of rows by the number of columns to get the total number of objects. The same here when I multiply the number of groups by the number of objects in each group, and I replace the number of groups with the number of objects in each group, I get the same result every time. Thank you, grade 3. See you next time.